These days, when making a purchase, we are usually doing it much more consciously than we ever have in the past as human beings. When choosing the next smartphone you're going to use, you're probably looking at the price to feature ratio and deciding on whether it's worth it to pay into the 4 digits or look into the 3-digit prices. The Galaxy Z Flip 4 is currently the lowest price foldable device you can get, while the Galaxy A54 is one of the lowest priced Samsung devices in general. Today we're going to take a look at whether it's worth it to spend into that 4 digits or if you should be looking into that 3-digit price range and what you'll get for it by comparing both of these devices. One thing that does not change no matter how much you pay is what you get in the box, which is going to be your USB Type-C to C cable, a SIM ejector tool, and your quick start guide and terms and conditions. The Flip 4 is an entry-level flagship device and its price tag conveys this. It has a starting price of $999 or $1,000 if you will, for 128 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of RAM. For $59.99 more, you can double your storage, but the RAM stays the same. Finally, if you feel that even 256 gigabytes of storage isn't enough, then you can opt for the 512 gigabyte option for $179.99 more, but again, your RAM will stay the same. The Galaxy A54 takes the one-size-fits-all approach, coming in at $449.99 with 128 gigabytes of storage and 6 gigabytes of RAM. Even though the A54 only has one storage size, you can go ahead and use a micro SD card up to 1 terabyte, which is something we normally don't see anymore in most phones these days. If you are particular about color choices, then the Flip 4 will most likely be the better choice for you. It comes in 4 standard colors, which are Bora Purple, Graphite, Pink Gold, and Blue. Samsung also has the bespoke edition of the Flip 4 that offered 74 possible color combinations, but it looks like they've stopped offering this customizable option and are only offering what's left of pre-made stock. At least that's what's on the Samsung US website. Either way, you'll still get more choices when compared to the 2 color choices you get for the A54 in the States here. Those color choices, by the way, are what Samsung calls Awesome Black and Awesome Violet. With names like these, though, I do kind of wonder what's going on in Samsung's marketing department. If you're after the 4 main colors of the Z Flip 4, then you can choose any storage option. The bespoke edition is and only has been available in 256 gigabytes, but you'll only have access, again, to the inventory they have left on Samsung.com. The A54 with its 1 storage option is available in both colors that it comes in. One thing to be aware of when it comes to storage is the type of storage being used in both of these devices. The Z Flip 4 utilizes UFS 3.1, while the A54 in the States here is either using UFS 3.1 also or UFS 2.2. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a solid answer since it depends on where you live in the world, but this is just something to keep in mind. The A54, again, also does have that support for the micro SD cards up to 1 terabyte. One thing that will most likely be noticeable is the difference in materials between these 2 devices. The Flip 4 has an Armor aluminum frame and Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on both the outer top and bottom half, and Samsung's ultra thin glass on its inner display. The A54 uses Gorilla Glass 5 on both its front and back, while its frame is actually made of a plastic material that might feel different if you're used to Samsung's flagship devices. Some of the potential design benefits for the Flip 4 are the feeling of the premium materials used in its build, the fact that you're getting a display that's only 0.8 smaller than even the Galaxy S23 Ultra, The added fact that this device can be folded in half, making it take up less vertical space than most phones out there. And the fact that the rear cameras are situated on top of the clamshell here, making it easier to take selfies with the best resolution possible. Potential design advantages of the A54 are its fairly large 6.4-inch display. It has a pretty compact design, making it fairly easy to use one-handed even with that large display. It's pretty lightweight considering the size of the battery. And you do get that micro SD card slot for storage expansion. Now, for potential design disadvantages of the Flip 4, it's the fact that you have that cover display here on the front being so small. And sure, you can increase its functionality with certain apps, but this display is still pretty small, especially since you'll most likely be interacting with it before you get to the main display. Another potential design disadvantage for someone might be the fact that you do have to flip this phone open in order to get anything done. This can be a little difficult to do with one hand and could be annoying for people who just like to get right to whatever they're going to do. One other disadvantage I can think of might be that the cover screen and cameras here are susceptible to damage not only from dropping, but also from anything that could actually fall on the device when it's closed. I know a case could actually solve this issue, but remember, any case you purchase will most likely still have these parts exposed anyway. Potential design disadvantages for the A54 is its plastic frame and the fact that it may be prone to easily chipping if dropped or being warped by other external factors. The fact that if your display gets cracked, then the use of the in-display fingerprint will most likely be no more. Honestly, that really is the only two things I could think of. There aren't really too many downsides to the design of the A54, which I guess is a good thing anyway. Now, when it comes to the IP specifications of both devices, the A54 is the only device out of the two that is fully dust resistant. Since the Flip has that open hinge design, it is susceptible to fine particles like sand. Both devices do at least, however, share the same water resistance rating of 7, which means they can be submerged between 15 centimeters and 1 meter for 30 minutes at a time. I mentioned the fingerprint briefly before, but if this is a security feature you use, you'll want to know that the Flip 4 has a power button / fingerprint combo, while the A54 has its fingerprint built into its display, like I also mentioned. Display-wise, the Z Flip 4 does have the extra cover screen on the front of it, which can be used for looking up basic information such as notifications, manipulating music controls, and more. One of the apparent things you'll notice between both of these devices is the difference between the saturation of colors being displayed on both of these devices. Both do use AMOLED displays, but the A54's is a bit dull here. And if you didn't have the chance to compare these two devices, then it's something you might not notice. But if you are coming from one of Samsung's high-end models in the S or Z series, then you might see that difference. At least you are getting a 120 Hz refresh rate on the A54, which is kind of unusual for a mid-range device. Of course, the Z Flip 4 also does have you covered with a 120 Hz refresh rate of that display. The resolution on both displays isn't 4K, but I'd say that they're both clear enough and won't make you squint to see things clearly. A big difference between both devices are the processors of choice used in both. The Z Flip 4 is using the now old Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus, while the A54 uses the all-new Samsung Exynos 1380. In my experience, both processors perform pretty well in everyday tasks, but the Exynos 1380, and I'm probably saying that word wrong, is a tiny bit slower when compared to the 8 Gen 1 Plus when it comes to even basic tasks. I also noticed more stutter in certain cases when using the A54 with its Samsung processor. When it comes to graphics processing, the Z Flip 4 definitely wins here, at least in the test I'm doing right now. You'll notice that the Z Flip 4 is able to keep a bit of a smoother frame rate when compared to the A54. I'd imagine this would only be true for graphically intensive games or activities, something like maybe Fortnite or something similar, but your Plants vs. Zombies runs should be fine. If you're at all curious about the type of RAM being used, then the Z Flip 4 is using LPDDR5, while the A54 is using LPDDR4X. These specs also do contribute to performance of both devices, which is something to keep in mind. I remember when 5G connectivity was just being put out into the wild and how much more you'd have to spend to get the fastest 5G antenna in a phone. While the Z Flip 4 does have both sub-6 and the mmWave antennas, the A54 seems to only come with the sub-6 antennas, at least the one here in the States does. There is also a difference in Bluetooth version between both devices. The Flip 4 has Bluetooth version 5.2, while the A54 gets the newer Bluetooth 5.3, which is more focused on making that Bluetooth connection stable rather than adding something new to use. Other than this though, all the other connectivity standards you've come to expect are here and present. On the photography side of things, you'll find that the A54 has a more versatile camera setup than the Z Flip 4. The Flip 4 has a 10 megapixel front-facing camera, while the A54 has a 32 megapixel front-facing camera. The A54 also takes the versatility cake here when it comes to the rear cameras, since it sports 3 cameras, one of which is a rare macro camera instead of the 2 cameras on the Flip 4. Now, of course, just having more cameras doesn't really mean anything, since there are a lot of factors that play into good picture quality. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the comparison photos I've taken between these two devices, and you can decide for yourself whether one camera is better than the other. Right now, we're going to go ahead and move on to the audio slash speaker test. I guess that's the same thing for both of these devices and see how they compare. Now, as always, you're going to want to adjust your volume because I do not control the volume in this section of the video and I do not want to break any eardrums. So go ahead and adjust your volume now, adjust it as needed when the song is playing, and you will get to hear how the speakers sound. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the microphone test. This is a test between the microphones on the Galaxy Z Flip 4 and the microphones on the Galaxy A54. Hopefully I am sounding very clear and there is no difference between this entry-level high-end device versus the mid-range device, which is the A54. This is a test between the microphones on the Galaxy Z Flip 4 and the microphones on the Galaxy A54. Hopefully I am sounding very clear and there is no difference between this entry-level high-end device versus the mid-range device, which is the A54. Battery-wise, the Z Flip 4 has a 3700 milliamp hour battery, while the A54 comes with a rather generously sized battery at 5000 milliamps. FYI, this is actually the same exact size as the battery in phones like the Galaxy S22 Ultra and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now, when it comes to charging, both phones charge at the same 25 watts max, but the Z Flip 4 is the only one that actually has wireless charging if you're into that. It maxes out at 15 watts. However, there is that added convenience to having wireless charging. Like, let's say if you're at an airport or something like that anywhere, of course you want to clean that surface before you put it down, but you do have it there. And then on top of that, you do have the 4.5 watt reverse wireless charging if you are into that. The A54 strictly is only 25 watt wired charging, and that is all you get, no wireless charging whatsoever. Let's go ahead and take a look at how long these batteries might last under a heavy load of work. So you can see here that both phones are sitting at 65%, and what I'm going to do is use that 3D Mark test I used when I was testing the processors, and that should test out both the CPU and GPU, stress them out to their max, and should give us a little bit of a better idea of how these phones perform battery-wise under a heavy load. All right, so here I have the test started, and I will be back once this is done. I think this takes about 20 minutes or maybe a little bit more. I guess it depends on the speed, but let's see what these batteries are like when I come back. So here we have it, that test is done, and let's go ahead and see what these batteries are at right now. Alrighty, so as we look with our own eyes here, the Flip 4 is sitting at 55%, while the A54 is sitting at 59%. I'm actually a little bit surprised here because I thought the A54 would have actually had a little bit better or more battery life, and I've tested this thing out. It actually has great battery life, like 2-day battery life, but I guess that test is a lot for its processor. But yeah, anyway, this is just an idea of what the battery life could be like when you're doing really serious tasks. Alrighty, so of course now we are going to move on to the charging test. And remember, both of these have a max charging wattage of 25 watts. So I'm going to do this for about 30 minutes and I will be back and we'll get to see where these batteries get to within that 30-minute time if I could actually get this cable in. There we go. All right, so I am back here and it is 11:40. So this was technically about a 31-minute test because I put these on at 11:09, and I apologize. My night filter, because I'm an old man, has kicked on, so that's why the Z Flip 4's screen is yellow. But as we can see here, the Flip 4 is at 89%, while the A54 is at 93%. So that's actually kind of surprising also, considering the A54 has a bigger battery. Interesting. Well, this is just supposed to give you an idea. But yeah, that's where the 25 watt charging will get you. Now, if you have used Samsung's software before, you are pretty much going to be used to anything that a Samsung device would have, but the Z Flip 4 does have a few unique and useful features when compared to a regular Samsung phone. So let's take a look at a few of those. Like I mentioned before, you'll be able to use your rear cameras to take selfies, but you can also take portrait photos of yourself, do video of yourself, and you can even zoom out to the ultra wide camera. Are you wondering whether you can use apps on the cover screen? Well, the answer is yes, you actually can. You can do this officially by using Samsung's Cover Launcher app or by using the Cover Screen OS third-party app. The Cover Launcher app is part of the Good Lock family of Samsung apps, and Cover Screen OS is an app that can be downloaded in the Play Store. The last and very useful software feature we have with the Flip 4 is Flex Mode. Flex Mode allows you to prop your phone up without having to have a case on it, which means you can do things like watch videos much easier, use your rear cameras in a more convenient way, and use your Flip 4 as a pseudo computer with the addition of the mouse pad you see here. These are pretty much just some of the features that Flex Mode will allow you to have, but all in all, they're pretty useful features in my opinion. And they do make a device like the Flip 4 stand out when compared to its candy bar counterparts. If you'd like to learn more about Flex Mode, please take a look at this video I created on how to use it, how to enable it, just essentially how to flex mode, if you will. Alrighty, so that is everything you should need to know about both of these devices to make a decision on whether one is going to be better for you versus the other. Essentially, both of these devices have their strong points. However, who these devices are for is really going to come down to what features you need and what you value more. And I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be the price. So the A54 might be better, but of course you have the amenities that the Z Flip 4 allots you. So with all of that being said, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, or a good night, and I shall see thee in thy next video, or my next video. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.